Hey guys, Michael Forst here at Forst State Trucks, and I'm going to show you how we're installing the BESTfit 7-inch exhaust on these 2018 to 2024 Peterbilt 389. This will be for the kids that have the DPF here under the door, underneath the step cover. And just to be sure this is going to fit yours is these late model step covers. You can see they don't have a bracket that attaches the DPF cover to a bracket on the frame. These newer ones, the DPF is attached to brackets and then the step fits over it. I want to give a big thanks to our friends over here at Acorn Transportation. They loaned us this 2020 389 to demo putting one of these kits on for you. All right guys, like I said, we're going to be putting 7-inch pipes on here, and obviously you can see this gap between the front of the sleeper and the rear of this DPF cover is not nearly enough for a 7-inch long drop elbow in there. So we're going to have to move this entire unit forward. We have this cowl panel right here, which is going to have to be modified or deleted in order to make all this work. So I'm going to take some tape here, put some marks on my cowl panel. So this cover will be coming forward a total of 5 inches. So what I need to do is take some measurements off the front of this to see where that would intersect this cowl panel at, and then allow me a little bit more room. So I'm going to put a mark 6 inches from this edge here and then draw a line straight down, and that's where I'm going to need to cut this one. All right, so now I've got my reference line on the cowl panel. Now I can open the hood, remove the cowl panel, take the DPF cover off. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this step bracket right here, and this is going to be necessary, A, to be able to get a jack underneath here, but also I'm going to be spacing this forward on the DPF when I finish too. So let me go ahead and take this opportunity to remove it now. All right, so now I've got this cover off here and got access to everything. I'm going to need to disconnect the coolant lines, the def lines, and these 2 sensor lines off this unit in order to remove it. Now some of these, like these 2 connectors right here, are identical. So I'm just going to number these 1 and 2. And just a simple disconnect there. With that one. And I've got def lines in here. They're just put into this little holder. Just got to pull those out. Now these are the actual connections onto the unit, and they are different size, so I don't have to mark those. In order to remove those, you can see these 2 little ears on this plastic clip. You just squeeze those together, and it pulls right off. This is a little tight. I need pliers to pull it in, but yep, there it is. Pull it off. Pull them. Remove the 2 little clips that hold these connectors onto that bracket. And lastly, I have the big connector there. And it's got a little safety tab there, and you pull that out. All right, safety tab's out, and then they just come unplugged. And now I've got this entire group of connectors and fittings and stuff separated from the DPF unit. I'm just gonna kind of tuck it up here into the framework of the body to keep it up out of my way. Now I'm going to remove the exhaust tubes in and out of this unit. In order to remove this clamp out here off the DPF, got 13mm on it. And I'm going to have to reuse this clamp, so I'm going to make sure I don't damage it. And one back here. Alright, next thing I'm going to do is remove this clamp off this short piece of flex pipe. This separates it from the Y pipe. And it's all kind of still held together here, but it is free. So once I remove the DPF, this will just come away from it. That was freed. Alright, now I get the big jack and get the DPF off of here. This DPF is a heavy, heavy unit, so I'm going to use this good transmission jack to support it while I unbolt it. Now the steel curved tubular bracket right here is bolted to the frame on these cast brackets, and there's 4 bolts on the front one and 4 bolts on the rear one that I need to pull out. A pretty simple process. The rest of this will stay together. That's everything loose or removed that needs to be. So now DPF has been removed from the truck. Now I can remove the Y pipe, these elbows, the stacks. Last pipe to remove is this one here from the turbo pipe that went into the DPF. And I got 1 V-band clamp and then 1 clamp that attached to this bracket right here. All right, so now I'm left with this elbow that comes off of that piece of flex. That's it for piping. I just got to remove the brackets off the frame now. So these are the brackets that supported the elbows. They had this clamp down here and one up here. I've got to remove these from the frame, and I won't be replacing this with any bracket up here, so I'm going to put these bolts back into these holes because there's cross members here and other stuff. So got to remove these 4 bolts on each side and get these hangers off of there. All right, so now I've got this side pretty well cleared out, except for these 2 mounts here. This is what the DPF bracket was attached to. And I do need to mark which one is front, which one is rear, because the offset of this surface right here to the bolts is slightly different. So if I had one here backwards, I could not get that DPF bracket back on. Alright, so here's the places where the front and rear DPF mounts were attached. You see it's 4 bolts each one like this, and all I'm going to do is move this thing forward one set of holes. So in order to do that, I'm just going to start drawing this out. These are the same pattern on the front and the rear, so I'll just use this straight edge to draw me a straight line. I'm exactly a 4-inch spacing, so just like I thought. All right, so right there is where I'll drill my new holes. I'm going to drill these to an 11/16. I'm going to start with a 3/16 drill bit, and I'll just step up a bit until I get up there to 11/16. Make sure there's no wires or coolant lines or anything directly behind here where I'm drilling. All right, so I've got all my new holes drilled. You can see I've got bolts filling the what will now be unused holes in. But before I put the brackets on, I got one more bracket I need to cut off each side. So we come up here to the top. This right here is the bushing that long pin rides in. I need to remove all of this, and I'll use this upper cab to sleeper mount just like you would on a standard non-DPF truck. So I've just got these 2 hut collars to cut off the bottom of this, and this bracket and that bushing will come off of here. All right, now to reinstall my brackets. And remember, the front and rear are very slightly different, so I'll make sure I get my rear on the rear section and front one on the front section. All right, so before I put the DPF back up there, I need to remove this piece of pipe with this flex pipe on it. We'll have a new short piece and a new flex pipe, so I just need to loosen up this band clamp right here and pull this piece right here out. All right, so now I can just slide the DPF right back up in there. And like I said, those 2 spots, 2 bolt holes on each bracket are slotted, so I can slide it into place and just lift it up in there. So now the DPF is mounted, I just need to go ahead and reconnect the DEF fluid lines, the connectors onto these sensors, and the main connector here. All right, so this here is the inlet pipe to the DPF. It replaced that one with the 2 bends in it that I had took off of there. As you can see, sitting right where it is, this thing is way too low. All I need to do is there's a clamp that holds the front section of this DPF to the rest of the body. I'll loosen that clamp and then rotate this end cap until this points up in line with this pipe here coming from the turbo. There's this band right here, and this is actually holding the DPF onto the bracket. But this one right here, this larger one with the stainless steel band, and you can kind of see it's almost V-band type. I just need to loosen up that nut and this one here, and then I can rotate the inlet can housing of this DPF unit. And you can see there's a large flange on one side and a short flange on the other. The large side would go to the DPF and the short one towards the engine. And there is a gasket that needs to go here on that mating surface and here on this mating surface. So here's the large one. I'm just going to put it on the DPF there, and the small one on the engine side. This will fit on that little short stem of a pipe there. Before I put it on there, this will be a clamp that goes right here. I want to put this on the pipe before I put it on there. Now at this point, I need to go ahead and tighten up the front end of this DPF, because I remember I loosened it up so I could shift that around. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is actually going to start putting the pipes together over here on this side, and then kind of work my way back to the DPF. So as you can see, I've got the cab bracket mounted onto the cab here, and now I'm going to go ahead and put an elbow and a spool and the clamps together. I'm going to hang this side of the pipe up and then start assembling the Y pipe and the passenger side. So before I slide my elbow into here, I'm going to go ahead and put a bead of silicone sealant up inside there. That'll of course keep the exhaust from leaking and also keep any rust and soot from running out. And I want to do it up in here about as far as I can reach, as long as the crimped part of the elbow still contacts it. So, but before I put this on the truck, I put a little bit of WD-40 on the Y pipe. I do not want to silicone the Y pipe to this elbow, because if I've ever got to work on this truck, do a clutch or anything, we won't be able to separate this. We'll have to cut the thing apart. So I never put a silicone down here on the Y pipe to the elbow, but a little bit of WD-40 in there really helps to get slid together. All right, so having this spool and elbow put together already really assists in working everything down below, because if I'd have hung just the elbow on here, it would try to swing up underneath the truck. Having the spool and both clamps on it helps keep it straight and in the position it needs to be putting on there. It makes putting the Y pipe on so much easier. So I got this elbow on here, and I want to have it pointing straight across to the passenger side of the truck. I'm going to go ahead and tighten up these clamps here onto the bracket, but I may have to move it again later. But for now, I'm going to tighten it up. That'll help me keep this in position while I'm trying to get the Y pipe on there. All right, that part of the Y pipe is in. Now that that part slid in there, something I wanted to show you. As you can maybe tell here, I've cut the bottom corner off of this rear battery box bracket because that was, just angled all the way down. But what typically tends to happen is this corner would not allow the curved part of this Y pipe to clear. So anytime we're doing long drop elbows, especially with the 6, 7, 8 inch Y pipe, cut the bottom corner of that off just to make sure there's room for that to clear. And we'll typically do it on both sides, but of course this truck, not having a toolbox on that side, only has the one bracket to cut. Temporarily tighten these up, keep everything in place. So I'm gonna start working on the pipe from the Y pipe to the DPF down below. So this curved pipe here is between the DPF and the Y pipe. This flared out end will slide over the inlet of the Y pipe. All right, so here's the outlet of the DPF. This is where I'm gonna connect flex pipe to this curved pipe going into the inlet of the Y pipe. In order to do that, I have to put this short piece of 5-inch pipe into here. So I have some OD for the flex to fit over. Flex pipe over here, back into place. And then slide it over that short piece here. There'll be a flat band clamp here and a preformed clamp here. And we'll be putting a preformed clamp at this joint right here. Okay. So we got two 7-inch flat band clamps, and they're going to go where the Y pipe meets the elbow right here. Now the clamps are all together, but one thing I want to do before I finish is I want to drill through the top of the pipe here where the elbow is slid over the Y pipe and put a stainless rivet in there. Reason being is that pipe with the inlet coming off in front and turning sideways is going to want to have a tendency to try to turn down and get closer to the ground. So if I put a rivet in there, I can lock that from happening. So next thing I need to do is get the step bracket back on here, and this just bolted directly to the ends of this square tubing that holds the DPF. Now when I moved this forward, I gained 4 inches forward, but I need to gain a total of 5. So what I'm doing is using these steel spacers up here between where this bracket mounts to this framework, and that'll move the step and step cover 1 more inch forward, giving us a total of 5 inches. Our step bracket's mounted back down here. Go ahead and temporarily set the step and DPF cover back on here. So that's where that sits on there, and obviously you can see that we have only about 1 inch of clearance between the end of that step and the elbow, and that's why it's necessary to move that cover forward as well. Now this cowl panel obviously can't go back on there. That's why I had to put a mark on here before I removed that so I could have a reference point. If I was going to put this cowl panel back on, I would take this to a bandsaw or even a circular saw and just cut straight down there and mount it up here, and it would just be a about 4-inch wide cowl panel. But in the case of this truck right here, the customer's already got a set of custom 1-piece cabin cowl panels with lights in them, so they actually had enough room for this. So we're going to go ahead and just mount this back in place. And it's easier to do that without this cover on. So I'm going to take this cover back off and put this cab panel back on. All right guys, there we have it all mounted on here. Finished product, looks great. We still have our completely factory looking DPF cover. As you can see, it's moved forward, but it doesn't really stand out at you because we do have this long drop elbow filling in the gap. So that's all there is to it. And we give a special thanks again to Acor Transportation for giving us this truck to demonstrate this on. And if you have any more questions on the install of this, give us a call here at Forst Trucks.